Now let's talk a little bit about your vikriti, or what your current misalignments are. So when we're talking about misalignments, again, think in terms of what you're experiencing right now. Not like, oh yeah, sometimes in my life, but think of like, yeah, lately, or if it has been happening most of your life, you can also encourage it. But think of it in terms of, these are things that are identifying things that are out of balance, that are, how would we say, indications of something that is on its way out of balance, if not already out of balance here. And again, remember, this doesn't have to be what you've experienced most of your life. It's just what your common imbalances have been as of late. Okay. So here's some vata imbalances. Some very common vata imbalances. We have fear and anxiety, physical and emotional constriction, ungroundedness, poor circulation, constipation, dry skin, cracking joints, emaciation, insomnia, and other types of abnormal movements of the body. So if you're someone who tends to be like, yeah, I've been suffering with a lot of that lately, just keep a note of that. You can put it in the group chat. V, vata. We good so far? Move on. All right. When we're talking about pitta imbalances. Pitta imbalances cause anger, jealousy, inflammation in the body, excessive heat, heartburn, acid reflux, looser stools, like looser bowel movements, migraines, rashes, like skin rashes, challenge on the skin, including like acne, bruising, bleeding, everything from bleeding disorders to sharp hunger to an overactive metabolism. Also, difficulty sleeping usually has a lot to do with pitta, even more than vata at times. All right, if that's something you've been to experience a lot of, P. Now, so even before we talk about kapha, anyone here feel like you experience kind of a little bit of both of them sometimes? That's also very common. It's not necessarily that you're going to only experience one imbalance, one dosha out of balance. Keep in mind, once one goes out, everything else has to compensate. Right? You may experience all of both, may experience a little of one, a little of the other. Focus on the ones that you're primarily struggling with, the one primarily, and then the one that you're secondarily struggling with. Let's talk a little bit about kapha. When kapha is in excess, we're looking at attachment, greed, resistance to change, a lack of motivation, heaviness in both the body and the mind, excessive sleep and like lethargy, also depression, a slower metabolism, or like sluggish metabolism, congestion, a lot of water retention, even like hardening of the arteries, and eventually even the form of masses, tumors, like masses on the body. So these are like kapha. So just, again, we're not going so much into it. Just want to give you guys little basic ideas before we actually can start identifying for you guys and talking about how to relate it to our spiritual life. But, and again, we're not, if your mind's like, oh, I don't know, maybe I missed one or two of them, don't worry. We're just moving in broad strokes here. Cool. Raise your hand if your prakriti, which we just identified a minute ago, your birth constitution, and your vikriti are the exact same. Raise your hand. Anyone here have that? Okay. Ian? Deirdre? Okay. Some of you. Michelle, a little bit. Okay. So some of you. So that is going to be relatively common because those are the ones, remember, that are going to go out the most. Therefore, you guys are experiencing, it just means your prakriti and your vikriti are going to be the same. It's going to be a little bit easier for you to balance. Easier initially, not necessarily long term, but right now, a little bit easier for you to balance. For those of you who is different, this is usually where we start getting in the realm of self-medication causes more issues than what it's helpful for. I actually experienced this myself years ago. Once when I was a monk and I was traveling, one of my friends really knew nothing about Ayurveda, but maybe read a cool thing about it or something. He goes, yeah, man, you're vata. You're like a vata, man. You gotta you're vata, like you gotta balance your vata. And I was like, okay. So I Google how to do that, and I just wound up like causing my body so much more than I needed to. But it's very common, and this is where it can become really sticky if you're trying to self-medicate, do these things on your own. As a matter of principle, I don't encourage anyone to ever just like Google something and be like, yeah, okay, that's what I'll do. You guys know what I'm saying? You're with me? All right, just making sure. Not throwing tomatoes at me at this point. So the first thing you want to look at is your Vikriti and how to balance it. So for those of you who experience vata, raise your hand if vata was one of the primary ones. Like vata was like something that was really out of balance. Yeah. If your hand's not raised, you are a minority. You are somewhat unique, specifically if you live in the Western world. It's really hard. Western society is practically inherently vata aggravating. Just the way that, I mean, the way that society is built in terms of the way our routines are developed and the way that we're trained, even in school, the way like we from a young age, we're forced in school with a particular routine. That's anyway, it can be hard. Let's put it that way. For those of you who are experiencing vata, the main thing we want to do then again is find a vata pacifying diet and lifestyle. For those of you primarily pitta, we want to follow a pitta pacifying lifestyle. For those of you kapha, we're going to follow a kapha pacifying lifestyle. This is the most generic, basic place to start from. There's other things we're going to talk about in a minute as well. But do you guys feel like you have some idea of like your Vikriti and like what needs to be balanced first in terms of like, yeah, oh man, my vata, I got to balance my vata. I'm super spacey. I'm like all over the place. By the way, ADHD simply just means vata. It's a just type of vata illness, which I was diagnosed ADHD. It's like super common nowadays, ADHD, whatever it was. It's like if you find yourself jumping all over the place, you can't stay still, or you're constantly in the mind, you're creating these kind of like fantasy like thoughts. If you find yourself very hard to like commit to be grounded like that, okay, so vata. If you find yourself often, you're getting angry really easy, you get really frustrated, it's kind of, intolerant with people. You find your body, you just, you seem to like go to the bathroom quite often and it just comes rushing right out of you. Or, you find yourself regularly getting acne and cold sores or rashes or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm going to pacify pitta. You find yourself just like, yeah, I'm just putting on all this weight. I just can't get any like motivation to get things done. I don't want to do anything. Those kind of, okay, we're going to talk about pacifying. Kapha. Head bobble if you're with me so far. All right. You guys just got like a 4-month Ayurvedic basics familiarity. Really broad. We're not going so much deeper into that. But now you guys understand the basic form of what you personally need to start balancing.